The morning air in downtown Seattle carried the scent of rain and possibility as Maya Rodriguez adjusted the worn strap of her diaper bag one more time. The towering glass facade of Sterling Tech Solutions stretched 30 floors above her, its modern architecture a stark reminder of the world she was about to enter. At 26, Maya had never imagined she would find herself standing outside one of the Pacific Northwest's most innovative software companies, clutching her 18-month-old son Diego's hand while trying to summon the courage to walk through those intimidating glass doors. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The company tour wasn't supposed to happen this way. Maya had signed up for the public tour of Sterling Tech 3 weeks ago, drawn by their reputation for creating groundbreaking educational software that was transforming how children learned. As a former elementary school teacher turned struggling freelance tutor, she had dreams of one day working for a company that could make a real difference in children's lives. The tour was meant to be reconnaissance, a chance to see if Sterling Tech might eventually have a place for someone with her background and passion for education. But life had other plans. Her neighbor Mrs. Chen, who usually watched Diego during Maya's rare professional outings, had fallen ill with the flu the night before. The babysitting service Maya occasionally used was fully booked and canceling. The tour would mean waiting another 2 months for the next available slot. So here she stood, hoping that bringing her toddler son to a corporate tour wouldn't mark her as completely unprofessional before she even had a chance to make an impression. Diego tugged at her hand, his dark eyes wide with curiosity as he watched the stream of professionally dressed people entering and exiting the building. His chubby fingers clutched a small stuffed monkey, his constant companion since he had learned to walk. Maya had dressed him in his best outfit, a navy blue polo shirt and khaki pants that made him look like a miniature businessman, though she knew that wouldn't last long once his natural toddler energy kicked in. The lobby of Sterling Tech was everything Maya had expected and more. Sleek white marble floors reflected the soft glow of modern lighting fixtures, while living walls of vibrant green plants created a sense of organic warmth within the high-tech environment. Interactive displays showcased the company's latest educational software innovations, with holographic demonstrations that made Diego gasp with delight and point excitedly at the floating images. Maya approached the reception desk where a friendly woman with silver hair and kind eyes was organizing tour materials. Her name tag read Jennifer Walsh, Community Relations, and she looked up with a warm smile as Maya approached. "You must be here for the 10 o'clock tour," Jennifer said, her voice carrying a slight southern accent that immediately put Maya at ease. "I'm Jennifer, and I'll be your guide today. We have a wonderful group joining us." Maya nodded, shifting Diego to her other hip as he began to squirm with excitement. "I'm Maya Rodriguez, and this is my son Diego. I hope it's all right that I brought him. My childcare arrangements fell through at the last minute, and I really didn't want to miss this opportunity." Jennifer's smile widened as she looked at Diego, who was now waving shyly at her from behind his stuffed monkey. "Of course it's fine, sweetheart. We love having young visitors. In fact, it's perfect timing because we're showcasing some of our new early childhood learning applications today. Diego might be our best test audience." Relief flooded through Maya as she realized she wouldn't be judged or asked to leave. She had spent so many sleepless nights worrying about being a single mother in professional settings, always feeling like she had to choose between her career aspirations and her responsibilities to her son. Finding spaces where both parts of her identity were welcomed felt like discovering an oasis in a desert. The tour group was smaller than Maya had expected, consisting of about 12 people including herself and Diego. There were recent college graduates with eager faces and portfolio bags, middle-aged professionals considering career changes, and a few individuals like herself who seemed to be exploring possibilities rather than actively job hunting. Everyone was welcoming when Jennifer introduced Maya and Diego, and several people commented on how well-behaved Diego was as he walked quietly beside his mother, taking in all the new sights and sounds. Jennifer led them through the main lobby, explaining Sterling Tech's history and mission. The company had been founded 8 years ago by CEO Michael Sterling, a former Microsoft executive who had left the corporate giant to create educational software that would revolutionize how children with learning differences accessed education. What had started as a small startup in a shared office space had grown into a company with over 400 employees and partnerships with school districts across the country. As they walked through the collaborative workspaces, Maya was struck by the company's culture. Employees worked at standing desks, in comfortable lounge areas, and even in outdoor spaces visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. The atmosphere was simultaneously professional and relaxed, with people engaged in animated discussions about projects while others focused intently on their computer screens. It was exactly the kind of environment Maya had always imagined herself thriving in. Diego was fascinated by everything he saw. When they passed a room where software developers were testing a new reading application with colorful animated characters, he pressed his face against the glass window and made excited babbling sounds. When Jennifer noticed his interest, she asked one of the developers if they could step inside for a quick demonstration. The developer, a young woman named Sarah with purple streaks in her hair, was delighted to show off their latest creation. She demonstrated how the application used voice recognition to help children practice reading aloud, with friendly animated animals that would celebrate correct pronunciations and gently guide children through challenging words. Diego was mesmerized, clapping his hands when the cartoon elephant trumpeted approval for a correctly read sentence. "He's got excellent focus for his age," Sarah commented to Maya. "How old is he?" 18 months, Maya replied, watching proudly as Diego continued to engage with the demonstration. "He's always been curious about everything, especially anything with colors and sounds. That's the perfect age for developing language skills," Sarah said. "We're actually working on applications specifically for that age group. It's amazing how much they can absorb when the content is presented in the right way." As the tour continued, Maya found herself genuinely impressed not just by the technology, but by the people behind it. Every employee they met seemed passionate about their work and genuinely committed to the company's educational mission. She could picture herself contributing to projects that would help children like the students she used to teach, kids who struggled with traditional learning methods but thrived when given the right tools and support. The group was led through the creative departments, where designers worked on user interfaces that were both beautiful and intuitive for young users. They visited the research division, where child psychologists and education specialists collaborated with software engineers to ensure that every application was developmentally appropriate and pedagogically sound. Maya was particularly interested in this area, as it seemed to bridge her background in education with the technological innovation she wanted to be part of. Diego continued to be the perfect companion, walking quietly when needed and expressing wonder at the right moments. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Several employees they encountered stopped to say hello to him, and Maya noticed how naturally everyone interacted with children. It reinforced her sense that Sterling Tech might be the kind of workplace where she could eventually balance her professional ambitions with her role as a mother. The tour was scheduled to conclude with a brief presentation in the company's main conference room, where Jennifer would provide more detailed information about Sterling Tech's current projects and future plans. As they made their way to the executive floor, Maya felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The executive level was more formal than the rest of the building, with rich wood paneling and sophisticated artwork that spoke to the company's success and stability. The conference room was impressive, with a long polished table surrounded by ergonomic chairs and state-of-the-art presentation equipment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Seattle's skyline, with the Space Needle visible in the distance and Elliott Bay sparkling in the morning sunlight. Maya had never been in such an elegant professional space, and she felt a moment of intimidation before reminding herself that she belonged here as much as anyone else. As the group settled into their seats, Jennifer began setting up her presentation materials. Diego, who had been remarkably patient throughout the tour, was starting to show signs of restlessness. He wiggled in Maya's lap and began to fuss quietly, a sure sign that his toddler attention span was reaching its limit. Maya tried to distract him with his stuffed monkey, but he pushed it away and started to whimper. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered to Jennifer, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "He's usually so good, but I think he's getting tired." "Don't worry about it at all," Jennifer assured her with a warm smile. "We're almost finished, and honestly, he's been an angel compared to some of the adults I've toured around here." The comment drew chuckles from the other tour participants, helping Maya relax slightly. But Diego's fussing was escalating, and she could see concerned looks from some of the other visitors. She was debating whether to excuse herself and take Diego outside when the conference room door opened unexpectedly. The man who entered commanded immediate attention without saying a word. Tall and lean with dark hair that showed distinguished touches of silver at the temples, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to leadership. His charcoal gray suit was perfectly tailored, and his dark eyes swept the room with intelligent assessment. Maya recognized him immediately from the company website and business articles she had read in preparation for the tour. This was Michael Sterling, the CEO and founder of Sterling Tech Solutions. "I apologize for the interruption," Michael said, his voice carrying a slight East Coast accent that suggested sophisticated origins. "Jennifer, I was hoping to catch your tour group to welcome them personally. I don't usually get the chance to meet with our visitors." Jennifer's face lit up with pleasant surprise. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Michael Sterling, our CEO and founder. This is quite a treat, as Mr. Sterling is usually in meetings or traveling." Michael smiled warmly at the group, his demeanor immediately putting everyone at ease despite his obvious importance. "Please call me Michael. I hope Jennifer has been taking good care of you and showing you the best of what we do here at Sterling Tech." The tour participants murmured appreciative responses, clearly impressed by the personal attention from the company's leader. Maya found herself studying Michael's face, noting the genuine warmth in his expression and the way his eyes seemed to focus intently on each person as Jennifer made introductions around the table. Diego, meanwhile, had stopped fussing and was staring at Michael with the unabashed curiosity that only toddlers possess. His little head was tilted to one side, and his mouth was slightly open as he took in this new person who had captured the attention of all the adults in the room. "And this is Maya Rodriguez," Jennifer was saying, gesturing toward Maya. "She's a former teacher who's very interested in our educational applications. And this little gentleman is Diego, who's been our youngest tour participant today and quite possibly our most observant." Michael's attention turned to Maya and Diego, and something shifted in his expression. The professional smile remained, but there was a flicker of something deeper in his eyes as he looked at the toddler. He approached their side of the table with slow, deliberate steps, as if he didn't want to startle Diego. "Hello, Diego," Michael said softly, crouching down so he was at eye level with the little boy. "I heard you've been exploring our building today. What do you think of it?" Diego studied Michael's face with intense concentration, his dark eyes wide and serious. Then, to everyone's amazement, he broke into a huge smile and reached out his small hands toward Michael. It was the kind of immediate, instinctive trust that children sometimes display toward certain adults, and it was clear that Diego had decided Michael was someone special. "I think he likes you," Maya said, unable to hide her surprise at her son's unusually outgoing behavior. Diego was typically shy around strangers, especially men, and his immediate acceptance of Michael was unprecedented. Michael's smile became more genuine as he allowed Diego to grab his fingers with tiny hands. The feeling is mutual. How old is he? 18 months, Maya replied, watching the interaction with growing amazement. He's not usually this friendly with people he's just met. Children are excellent judges of character, Michael said, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been wistfulness. They see things adults miss. Diego was babbling now, a stream of toddler sounds that seemed to be his attempt at conversation with Michael. His stuffed monkey lay forgotten in Maya's lap as he focused entirely on this new person who had captured his attention. Michael listened gravely to Diego's babbling, nodding occasionally as if he understood every word. He's telling you about all the things he saw on the tour, Maya translated with a laugh. He was especially excited by the animated reading program we saw earlier. Ah, that would be Sarah's latest project, Michael said, still maintaining eye contact with Diego. She's been working on applications for pre-verbal children. It sounds like Diego would be an excellent test subject. The conversation continued for several more minutes, with Michael asking thoughtful questions about Maya's teaching background and her interest in educational technology. Maya found herself opening up more than she had expected, discussing her experiences working with children who had learning differences and her dreams of contributing to software that could help kids who struggled in traditional educational settings. Throughout their conversation, Diego remained captivated by Michael, occasionally reaching out to touch his face or grabbing at his tie with the uninhibited friendliness of a confident toddler. Michael seemed completely at ease with the attention, responding to Diego's overtures with gentle patience and genuine engagement. You mentioned you taught elementary school, Michael was saying. What made you decide to leave the classroom? Maya hesitated, unsure how much personal information to share with the CEO of a company she hoped might one day employ her. Budget cuts eliminated my position, she said finally. I've been freelance tutoring since then, but I miss being part of a larger educational mission. That's why I was so interested in learning more about Sterling Tech. Michael nodded thoughtfully. The traditional education system is struggling to adapt to individual learning needs. That's exactly why we started this company. We believe technology can help level the playing field for children who learn differently. It was clear that Michael's passion for the company's mission was genuine, not just corporate rhetoric. Maya found herself drawn into a deeper conversation about education, technology, and the challenges facing children in today's learning environment. She forgot about feeling intimidated by his position and found herself discussing ideas and theories with the same enthusiasm she had once brought to her classroom. The other tour participants were listening with evident interest, but Maya gradually became aware that this conversation had evolved beyond the typical CEO meet and greet. Michael was asking specific questions about her teaching experience, her thoughts on current educational software, and her ideas for improving accessibility for children with learning differences. It felt almost like an informal interview, though. She couldn't imagine why the CEO of a major tech company would be interested in her background. Diego, meanwhile, had grown increasingly comfortable with Michael's presence. He was now standing on Maya's lap, using her shoulders for balance while he continued his animated babbling directed at Michael. His little hands gestured expressively as he told his incomprehensible but clearly important story, and Michael continued to listen with the same serious attention he might give to a board presentation. Then it happened. Diego paused in his babbling, looked directly at Michael with his big dark eyes, and said with perfect clarity, "Papa." The word hung in the air like a bell that had been struck. The entire conference room fell silent, with every person frozen in place as they processed what they had just heard. Maya felt her face flush with mortification as she realized her son had just called the CEO of sterling tech Papa in front of a room full of strangers. "Oh my God," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. He doesn't usually mean, he's never." But as she looked at Michael's face, she realized something extraordinary was happening. Instead of the embarrassment or annoyance she might have expected, Michael's expression had transformed completely. His eyes were bright with unshed tears, and his face had gone pale beneath his professional tan. He was staring at Diego with an intensity that was almost painful to witness, as if the little boy had just spoken words that carried profound personal significance. Diego, oblivious to the dramatic effect of his pronouncement, clapped his hands together with delight and repeated the word. "Papa, Papa," he said, reaching out toward Michael with absolute trust and affection. The silence in the room stretched on, broken only by Diego's happy babbling and the soft sound of Michael's unsteady breathing. Maya could feel the weight of everyone's attention, but she found herself unable to look away from Michael's face. Something profound was happening here, something that went far beyond a simple case of mistaken identity from a toddler who didn't know better. Michael slowly reached out and touched Diego's cheek with trembling fingers. "Hello, little one," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "Hello." Jennifer Walsh cleared her throat gently, sensing the charged atmosphere in the conference room, and recognizing that something extraordinary was unfolding before the tour group. The other participants shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether they were witnessing a heartwarming moment or an awkward situation that required intervention. Maya felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment as she attempted to extract Diego from his increasingly animated interaction with the CEO. "I'm so incredibly sorry, Mr. Sterling," Maya said, reaching for Diego, who was now trying to climb toward Michael with determined toddler persistence. "He's never done anything like this before. I don't know what's gotten into him." Michael seemed to shake himself from whatever trance Diego's words had cast over him. He blinked several times, his professional composure gradually reasserting itself, though the emotional impact of the moment remained visible in the tension around his eyes and the slight tremor in his hands. "Please don't apologize," Michael said, his voice still carrying traces of the rawness that had overwhelmed him moments before. "Children say what they feel. There's honesty in that." Diego continued to reach for Michael, his little hands opening and closing in the universal gesture of a child who wants to be picked up. When Michael hesitated, Diego tilted his head and repeated the word that had created such a profound reaction. "Papa," he said again, this time more softly, as if he understood the weight his simple word carried. The spell was broken by the quiet buzz of Michael's phone. He glanced at it reluctantly, and Maya could see the internal struggle playing out across his features as he was pulled back to the demands of his executive responsibilities. "I'm afraid I have a board meeting in 10 minutes, Michael said, his tone returning to its professional cadence though his eyes remained fixed on Diego. "Jennifer, please continue with the presentation. I hope everyone has found the tour informative." He began to turn toward the door, but Diego's distressed cry stopped him in his tracks. The little boy had realized that his new favorite person was leaving, and his face crumpled with the immediate devastation that only toddlers could experience. Big tears welled up in his dark eyes as he reached desperately toward Michael's retreating figure. "Papa," Diego wailed, his voice carrying the heartbreak of abandonment. "Papa, no!" The sound seemed to physically pain Michael, who stopped mid-step and closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, Maya was startled to see a man fighting an internal battle between duty and something much more personal and profound. "Perhaps," Michael said slowly, "we could arrange for a follow-up conversation about educational opportunities," he added quickly, as if providing a professional justification for his obvious desire to maintain contact. "Your background in special education could be valuable for some of our upcoming projects." Maya nodded eagerly, though she wasn't entirely sure if this was a genuine professional opportunity or something else entirely. I would welcome that conversation. I have so many ideas about how technology could better serve children with different learning styles. Michael pulled out his business card and handed it to Maya, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. Email me directly. We can set up a meeting to discuss your thoughts in more detail. Diego had calmed slightly when he realized Michael wasn't immediately disappearing, but he continued to watch the CEO with intense focus, as if memorizing every detail of his face. Michael seemed equally unable to look away from the little boy, and Maya found herself wondering what memories or emotions Diego's presence was triggering. "Thank you," Maya said, clutching the business card like a lifeline. "I look forward to hearing from you." Michael nodded once more at the group, his professional mask firmly back in place, and left the conference room. But not before Maya caught one last glance he directed toward Diego, a look so full of longing and pain that it took her breath away. The remainder of the tour proceeded normally, though Maya found it difficult to concentrate on Jennifer's presentation about Sterling Tech's community partnerships and internship programs. Her mind kept returning to those moments when Diego had called Michael Papa, and the inexplicable emotional response it had triggered. There was clearly a story there, some personal history that made her son's innocent words particularly meaningful. Diego, for his part, seemed subdued after Michael's departure. He sat quietly in Maya's lap, occasionally looking toward the door as if expecting his papa to return. It was so unlike his usual energetic demeanor that several of the other tour participants commented on how well-behaved he was, not realizing that the little boy was actually processing the loss of someone who had captured his attention completely. When the tour concluded, Maya lingered in the lobby while the other participants made their way to the elevators. She wasn't quite ready to leave this place where something significant had happened, though she couldn't yet articulate exactly what that something was. Diego dozed against her shoulder, exhausted from the morning's excitement and emotional intensity. Jennifer approached her with a warm smile and a manila folder filled with information about Sterling Tech's programs and career opportunities. "I wanted to give you some additional materials," she said. "And I have to say, in 15 years of giving tours, I've never seen anything quite like what happened in that conference room." Maya felt her cheeks warm again. "I'm still mortified. I can't imagine what Mr. Sterling thought." "Honey," Jennifer said gently, "I've worked with Michael Sterling for 8 years, and I've never seen him react to anyone the way he reacted to your little boy. That wasn't embarrassment or annoyance. That was something much deeper." The older woman's perceptive comment confirmed Maya's own instincts about the encounter. "Do you know why? I mean, does he have children of his own?" Jennifer's expression grew carefully neutral, the practiced discretion of someone who worked closely with a public figure. "That's not really my story to tell," she said softly. "But I will say that your email to him won't go unnoticed. Michael Sterling is many things, but he's never been anything less than genuine in his professional relationships." Maya thanked Jennifer for her kindness and made her way to the parking garage, her mind spinning with questions and possibilities. As she secured Diego in his car seat, he stirred and looked up at her with sleepy eyes. "Papa?" he asked quietly, as if wondering where his new friend had gone. "Papa had to go to work, sweetheart," Maya said, surprised by how naturally the explanation came. "But maybe we'll see him again soon." The drive home to her small apartment in the Ballard neighborhood gave Maya time to process the morning's events. She had come to Sterling Tech hoping to gain insight into a company she might one day want to work for. Instead, she had somehow stumbled into what felt like a much more personal and complex situation. Her apartment was a modest one-bedroom space that she had worked hard to make cheerful and comfortable for herself and Diego. The walls were painted in warm yellows and soft greens, and she had filled the space with plants and artwork that created a sense of home despite the limitations of her budget. Diego's corner was equipped with educational toys and books that reflected Maya's commitment to fostering his development, even in their current circumstances. After settling Diego down for his afternoon nap, Maya sat at her small kitchen table and pulled out Michael Sterling's business card. The weight of the heavy cardstock and the elegant embossing spoke to a level of success that felt almost intimidating. She had been in contact with plenty of principals and education administrators over the years, but the idea of emailing a tech company CEO felt like stepping into entirely new territory. She spent the afternoon researching Michael Sterling more thoroughly than she had before the tour. The basic biographical information was readily available. He had graduated from MIT, with degrees in computer science and cognitive psychology, had worked for several major tech companies before founding Sterling Tech at age 32, and had built the company into a major player in educational software development over the past 8 years. But the more personal details were sparse. There were no mentions of a family in any of the business profiles she found. No references to a spouse or children in the carefully curated interviews he had given to trade publications. His social media presence was entirely professional, focused on company achievements and industry developments. For someone who had achieved such significant success and public recognition, Michael Sterling seemed to guard his private life with unusual care. What Maya found most interesting were the articles about Sterling Tech's founding mission. In every interview, Michael spoke passionately about creating educational tools for children who struggled in traditional learning environments. He talked about the importance of recognizing different learning styles and providing alternatives for kids who didn't fit conventional educational models. His commitment to accessibility and inclusion seemed deeply personal, not just a business strategy. One article from 3 years ago particularly caught her attention. It was about Sterling Tech's partnership with Seattle Children's Hospital to develop therapeutic applications for children recovering from traumatic brain injuries. Michael was quoted extensively about the importance of maintaining hope and connection during the healing process. There was something in his words that suggested personal experience with medical challenges, though nothing was stated explicitly. Diego woke from his nap in a cheerful mood, seemingly having forgotten his earlier distress about Papa's departure. Maya spent the evening playing with him, reading stories and preparing his dinner, but part of her mind remained focused on the decision of whether and how to contact Michael Sterling. That night, after Diego was asleep, Maya sat down at her laptop and began composing an email. She wrote and deleted several drafts, struggling to find the right tone between professional interest and acknowledgement of the personal moment they had shared. Finally, she settled on a straightforward approach that focused on her genuine enthusiasm for Sterling Tech's educational mission, while briefly mentioning Diego's positive response to the company environment. The email she ultimately sent was careful and professional, outlining her background in special education and her ideas about how technology could better serve children with learning differences. She mentioned specific programs she had seen during the tour and how they related to challenges she had encountered in her teaching experience. At the end, she included a brief, tactful reference to Diego's comfort level during the visit and how it reinforced her sense that Sterling Tech would be an ideal environment for someone balancing professional aspirations with parenting responsibilities. Maya hit send before she could second-guess herself further, then immediately worried that she had been either too forward or not forward enough. The uncertainty was maddening, but there was nothing to do now except wait and see if Michael Sterling would respond to her outreach. The response came much sooner than she had expected. When Maya checked her email the following morning while Diego played with his blocks nearby, she found a message from Michael that had been sent at 11:30 the previous evening. The timestamp suggested he had been working late, which aligned with everything she had read about his demanding schedule and intense work ethic. His email was brief but warm, expressing genuine interest in discussing her ideas about educational accessibility and suggesting they meet for coffee to continue the conversation that had begun during the tour. He mentioned that he often worked from a coffee shop near Pike Place Market on Friday mornings, and wondered if she might be available to join him there. Maya read the message 3 times, analyzing every word for subtext and hidden meaning. The suggested meeting was clearly professional in nature, but the fact that he had responded so quickly and suggested a casual setting rather than a formal office meeting felt significant. She found herself wondering if his choice of a public coffee shop was meant to make her feel more comfortable or if there were other reasons. He preferred to meet away from Sterling Tech's offices. She replied accepting the meeting and suggesting a time that would work around Diego's schedule. Almost immediately, another message appeared in her inbox, this one confirming the details and including his personal phone number in case she needed to reach him directly. The ease and speed of their email exchange felt natural and comfortable, as if they were colleagues who had known each other for years, rather than virtual strangers who had shared one intense moment. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical Seattle weather that Maya had learned to dress for in layers. She chose her outfit carefully, wanting to look professional, but not overdressed for a coffee shop meeting. Diego was in a particularly good mood, chattering happily as she prepared his diaper bag and gathered the materials she wanted to share with Michael. The coffee shop Michael had suggested was a small, independent place tucked between a used bookstore and a vintage clothing shop near the market. It had the kind of comfortable, intellectual atmosphere that attracted writers, students, and professionals looking for a change of pace from sterile office environments. Maya arrived a few minutes early and secured a table in the back corner, where she could set up Diego's portable high chair without disturbing other customers. Michael appeared precisely at the agreed-upon time, looking more relaxed than he had in the corporate setting. He wore dark jeans and a soft gray sweater instead of his business suit, and his hair was slightly rumpled as if he had been running his hands through it while working. When he spotted Maya and Diego at their table, his face lit up with the same genuine warmth she had witnessed during the tour. "I hope you don't mind that I brought Diego again," Maya said as Michael approached their table. "Friday is usually our day together, and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to meet with you." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Michael replied, and Maya could tell he meant it. His eyes went immediately to Diego, who was busy arranging Cheerios on his high chair tray with intense concentration. "How has he been since our last meeting? Any more corporate pronouncements?" Maya laughed, feeling the tension she hadn't realized she was carrying begin to dissolve. "He's been asking about Papa every day. I think you made quite an impression on him." Something flickered across Michael's expression at her words, too quickly for Maya to interpret fully. He ordered coffee for both of them and settled into the chair across from her, his attention divided between their conversation and Diego's Cheerio engineering project. "I've been thinking about our conversation regarding educational accessibility," Michael began, pulling out a small notebook filled with handwritten notes. "Your insights about children who struggle with traditional learning methods really resonated with me. I'd love to hear more about your specific experiences and ideas." Maya found herself opening up about her teaching career with an enthusiasm she hadn't felt in months. She described students who had blossomed when given alternative ways to engage with material, and others who had been written off by the system despite having tremendous potential that simply needed different kinds of nurturing. Michael listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and taking detailed notes about her observations and suggestions. What surprised Maya most was how naturally their conversation flowed beyond purely professional topics. When Diego began to fuss and needed attention, Michael didn't seem impatient or distracted. Instead, he helped entertain the little boy with silly faces and gentle conversation, while Maya organized her materials. When Diego dropped his stuffed monkey and began to cry, Michael retrieved it without hesitation and returned it with the kind of gentle competence that suggested experience with young children. "You're very good with him," Maya observed, watching Michael successfully redirect Diego's attention to a new activity. "Do you have much experience with toddlers?" The question seemed to catch Michael off guard, and Maya saw him struggle momentarily with how to respond. He said finally, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been sadness. A while ago. Maya sensed there was more to the story, but she didn't push. Instead, she continued sharing her ideas about educational software development, and Michael gradually relaxed back into their professional discussion. They talked for nearly 2 hours, with their conversation ranging from specific technical challenges to broader philosophical questions about how technology could serve children's developmental needs. Diego was remarkably patient throughout their extended meeting, content to play with his toys and occasionally interact with Michael, who seemed to have an instinctive understanding of how to engage with a toddler without overwhelming him. Maya found herself studying Michael's interactions with her son, noting the gentle patience and natural warmth that contrasted sharply with his reputation as a demanding and sometimes difficult executive. When their meeting finally concluded, Michael walked them to Maya's car, carrying Diego's diaper bag and helping to load the various toddler accessories that seemed to multiply whenever they left the house. As Maya secured Diego in his car seat, the little boy looked up at Michael with bright, expectant eyes. "Papa go?" Diego asked, his voice carrying the same tone of disappointment Maya had heard at the end of the company tour. Michael's response was immediate and instinctive. He reached into the car and gently touched Diego's cheek, his voice soft and reassuring. "Papa has to go to work, little man. But maybe we'll see each other again soon." The words were out before Michael seemed to realize what he had said. Maya saw his eyes widen slightly as he processed his own response, and she felt her heart skip a beat at the casual way he had accepted Diego's designation. Neither of them commented on it directly, but the moment hung between them as Maya finished, buckling Diego into his seat. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me," Maya said as they stood beside her car. "I learned so much, and I'm excited about the possibility of contributing to Sterling Tech's mission." "The pleasure was entirely mine," Michael replied. "Your perspective is exactly what we need as we develop new programs. I'd like to continue this conversation, if you're willing. Perhaps we could arrange for you to visit our development team and share some of your insights with the people who are actually building these applications." Maya's heart raced at the suggestion. It sounded very much like the beginning of a job opportunity, though she tried not to get ahead of herself. "I would love that. When were you thinking?" "Let me check with my team and get back to you," Michael sighed, "but soon. I think there are several people who would benefit from hearing your ideas." As Maya drove home, she reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 week. 7 days ago, she had been a struggling single mother with limited prospects and no clear path forward. Now, she was potentially on the verge of a career opportunity with one of Seattle's most innovative companies, working with a man who seemed to understand both her professional aspirations and her personal responsibilities as a mother. But beyond the professional possibilities, Maya found herself thinking about the personal connection she felt with Michael Sterling. There was something about him that drew her in, a combination of intelligence, kindness, and hidden depth that made her want to know more about the man behind the CEO persona. And clearly, Diego had formed his own strong attachment to Michael, which both thrilled and worried Maya in equal measure. That evening, as she put Diego to bed, the little boy looked up at her with serious dark eyes and asked, "Papa, come back?" Maya smoothed his hair gently, choosing her words carefully. "I hope so, sweetheart. I hope so." The call came on Monday morning while Maya was helping Diego build a tower with his wooden blocks. Michael's name appeared on her phone's caller ID, and she felt a familiar flutter of excitement mixed with nervousness as she answered. "Maya, I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." Michael's voice came through clearly, carrying the same warmth she had experienced during their coffee shop meeting. "Not at all," Maya replied, watching Diego carefully balance another block on his increasingly precarious tower. "Diego and I are just playing architect this morning. How's the project going? Michael asked, and Maya could hear genuine interest in his voice. Well, he's definitely better at demolition than construction, Maya said, laughing as Diego's tower wobbled dangerously. But he's very enthusiastic about both aspects of the process. That's the best kind of learning, Michael observed. Trial and error with complete commitment to the experiment. Their easy banter felt natural and comfortable, as if they had been friends for years rather than recent acquaintances. Maya found herself relaxing into the conversation, enjoying the way Michael seemed genuinely interested in the small details of her daily life with Diego. I'm calling with good news, Michael continued. I spoke with our development team about your ideas, and there's tremendous interest in having you consult on our early childhood learning applications. Would you be available to come in later this week for a more formal presentation? Maya's heart leaped with excitement. Absolutely. What kind of presentation are you thinking? Nothing too intimidating, Michael assured her. Just a chance for you to share your insights with the team that's actually building these programs. They have specific questions about developmental appropriateness and accessibility that I think you're uniquely qualified to address. They arranged for Maya to visit Sterling Tech on Thursday afternoon, with Michael promising to provide her with detailed information about the specific projects she would be discussing. As their conversation wound down, Maya found herself reluctant to hang up, enjoying the connection she felt with Michael even through the phone. Maya, Michael said, his voice taking on a slightly more serious tone. I want you to know that bringing Diego to these meetings is not only acceptable but encouraged. Our team needs to see how children actually interact with our products, and Diego's responses during the tour were incredibly valuable. Thank you, Maya said, touched by his consideration for her situation. That means more than you know. I have some understanding of the challenges of balancing professional responsibilities with parenting, Michael said quietly. It's important that we create environments where both can coexist. There was something in his tone that suggested personal experience, confirming Maya's suspicion that Michael's understanding of her situation came from more than just abstract empathy. She wanted to ask more, but something held her back. Whatever Michael's story was, he would share it when he was ready. Thursday's presentation exceeded Maya's expectations in every way. The Sterling Tech development team was comprised of brilliant, passionate people who were genuinely committed to creating software that would make a difference in children's lives. They listened to her insights with attention and respect, asking thoughtful questions and incorporating her suggestions into their ongoing projects in real time. Diego was once again the perfect companion, charming everyone he met while providing live feedback on the applications they demonstrated for him. His reactions to different interfaces and interactions gave the development team immediate insight into what worked and what needed improvement from a user experience perspective. But it was Michael's presence throughout the afternoon that made the biggest impression on Maya. He attended every session, asked informed questions, and demonstrated a deep understanding of both the technical and educational aspects of their work. More importantly, he continued to interact with Diego with the same natural warmth and competence that had characterized their previous meetings. When the formal presentations concluded, Michael asked Maya to join him in his office for a private conversation. His workspace was impressive but surprisingly personal, with bookshelves filled with volumes on education, psychology, and child development alongside the business and technology texts she might have expected. That was extraordinary, Michael said as they settled into comfortable chairs near his office windows. The team was energized by your insights in a way I haven't seen in years. Several people have already started incorporating your suggestions into their current projects. Maya felt a glow of professional satisfaction, unlike anything she had experienced since leaving the classroom. It felt wonderful to be part of that kind of collaborative creativity again. Your team is doing incredible work. I have a proposition for you, Michael said, his voice taking on a formal tone that suggested an important offer was coming. We've been looking for an educational consultant to work with our development teams on an ongoing basis. Someone who understands both the theoretical foundations of child development and the practical realities of working with children who have different learning needs. Maya's heart began to race as she realized where this conversation was heading. The position would be part-time initially, Michael continued, with flexible scheduling that would accommodate your responsibilities with Diego. If things work out well, there would be opportunities for increased involvement and additional responsibilities. Are you offering me a job? Maya asked, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. I'm offering you a partnership, Michael corrected gently. A chance to help shape the future of educational technology in a way that reflects your values and expertise. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes as the magnitude of the opportunity sank in. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to combine her passion for education with cutting-edge technology, all while maintaining the flexibility she needed as a single mother. Yes, she said without hesitation, absolutely yes. Michael's smile was radiant, transforming his entire face and making him look years younger. Excellent. We can work out the details next week, but I want you to know how excited I am about this partnership. Diego, who had been playing quietly with his toys during their conversation, chose that moment to toddle over to Michael's chair and climb onto his lap with the confidence of a child who felt completely at home. Michael's arms came around the little boy automatically, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Papa work? Diego asked, looking around Michael's office with curious eyes. Yes, little man, Michael said softly. Papa works here. And now Mama is going to work here too. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that neither Maya nor Michael seemed ready to address directly. But as Maya watched her son settle contentedly in Michael's arms, she felt something shift in her understanding of what was happening between them. This was more than a professional opportunity. This was the beginning of something that could change all their lives in ways none of them had expected when a toddler first called a stranger Papa in a corporate conference room. Maya's first official day as Sterling Tech's educational consultant arrived with an October chill that reminded Seattle residents that summer was truly over. She had spent the previous weekend organizing her home office space and arranging flexible childcare with Mrs. Chen, who had recovered from her flu and was delighted to help support Maya's new career opportunity. Diego seemed to sense the importance of the day, cooperating unusually well during breakfast and getting dressed without his usual toddler protests. The past month had established a comfortable routine that felt almost too good to be true. Maya would bring Diego to Sterling Tech 3 mornings a week, where she worked with various development teams on early childhood learning applications. The company had set up a small play area adjacent to the main conference room, complete with educational toys and child-proofed furniture that allowed Diego to play safely while remaining close to his mother during meetings. What had surprised Maya most was how naturally Diego had integrated into the Sterling Tech environment. Employees throughout the building had grown accustomed to his presence, and many would stop by during their breaks to interact with him. He had become something of an unofficial mascot, providing stress relief and perspective to a workplace that could sometimes become intensely focused on technical details at the expense of remembering their ultimate audience. But it was Diego's relationship with Michael that continued to amaze and sometimes worry Maya. The little boy's attachment to the CEO had only grown stronger over the weeks, and Michael seemed equally drawn to Diego. Their interactions had a natural ease that suggested deep affection and understanding, yet Maya still sensed undercurrents of emotion in Michael that she couldn't fully interpret. On this particular morning, Maya was scheduled to present her assessment of Sterling Tech's current early childhood applications to the executive team. It was her first high-level presentation since joining the company, and she felt the familiar mixture of excitement and nerves that accompanied significant professional opportunities. She had prepared extensively, conducting detailed analysis of user engagement data and developing specific recommendations for improving accessibility and educational effectiveness. Diego was particularly energetic as they made their way through Sterling Tech's lobby, pointing excitedly at the interactive displays he had come to know well and waving at the security guard, who always saved a smile for the building's youngest regular visitor. When they reached the executive floor, Maya could hear voices coming from the main conference room, indicating that the meeting participants were already gathering. Michael appeared in the hallway just as Maya was setting up Diego's portable play area outside the conference room. He looked impeccably professional in a navy suit that emphasized his tall frame and confident bearing, but his face immediately softened when he saw Diego racing toward him with outstretched arms. "There's my favorite consultant," Michael said, scooping Diego up with practiced ease. "Are you here to help Mama with her big presentation today?" Diego nodded solemnly, as if he understood the importance of the occasion. "Mama work. Papa work too." Maya watched the exchange with the same mixture of warmth and uncertainty she always felt when witnessing Diego's easy affection with Michael. In the 6 weeks since their first meeting, Michael had never corrected Diego's use of Papa, and Diego had never wavered in his conviction that this man held a special place in his small world. "Are you ready for this?" Michael asked Maya, his tone shifting to gentle concern. "I know presenting to the executive team can feel intimidating, but remember that everyone in that room is here because they believe in what you're doing." Maya appreciated his reassurance, but she could see something else in his expression that suggested he understood pressure and performance anxiety from personal experience. "I think so. I've been working on this analysis for weeks, and I'm excited to share what I've discovered. Your insights have already transformed how 3 of our development teams approach their projects," Michael said. "The executive team needs to understand the broader implications of your work for our company's direction." They entered the conference room together, with Diego riding contentedly on Michael's shoulders and Maya carrying her presentation materials. The executive team was already assembled around the polished table, and Maya recognized several faces from company newsletters and website profiles. These were the people who made decisions that affected hundreds of employees and thousands of children who use Sterling Tech's educational software. Victoria Chen, the Chief Technology Officer, smiled warmly as they approached. "Maya, we've been hearing wonderful things about your work with our development teams. We're excited to hear your insights about our current product offerings." David Martinez, the Chief Operating Officer, nodded his agreement while glancing curiously at Diego, who was surveying the room from his perch on Michael's shoulders with the confidence of someone who belonged wherever he happened to be. Michael carefully lifted Diego down and settled him in the play area he had specifically requested be set up for this meeting. "Diego is our most honest critic," he explained to the team. "His reactions to our applications have been incredibly valuable in identifying user experience issues that might not be apparent to adult testers." Maya began her presentation with confidence, using detailed data analysis to illustrate patterns in user engagement and educational effectiveness across Sterling Tech's current application portfolio. She had identified specific areas where improvements could significantly increase both learning outcomes and user satisfaction, particularly for children with attention challenges or different learning styles. What made her presentation unique was the way she grounded every technical recommendation in real-world classroom experience. She shared stories about students she had taught who would have benefited from certain features and described specific scenarios where current Sterling Tech applications fell short of their potential impact. Her audience listened with growing engagement, asking thoughtful questions and taking detailed notes. Diego provided perfect timing throughout the presentation, playing quietly during serious discussions, but becoming animated and vocal whenever Maya demonstrated one of the applications on the large conference room screen. His genuine reactions to different interfaces and interaction patterns gave the executive team immediate feedback about which design elements successfully captured and maintained young children's attention. The data clearly shows that applications with adaptive difficulty scaling maintain user engagement 30% longer than static programs. Maya explained, gesturing to a graph that illustrated engagement patterns across different user demographics. But more importantly, children using adaptive programs show measurably better learning outcomes over time. Victoria Chen leaned forward with interest. Are you suggesting we retrofit our existing applications with adaptive algorithms, or focus on building this capability into new products? Both, Maya replied without hesitation. The retrofit process would be complex but worthwhile for our most popular applications. For new development, adaptive scaling should be a foundational design principle, not an afterthought. The discussion that followed was exactly the kind of collaborative problem-solving that Maya had hoped to facilitate. The executive team began exploring implementation timelines, resource allocation, and technical challenges with the same enthusiasm she had observed in the development teams. It was clear that Sterling Tech's leadership was genuinely committed to improving their educational impact, not just increasing profits. Diego chose the moment when Maya was discussing accessibility features to toddle over to Michael's chair and climb onto his lap. Michael's arms came around the little boy automatically, and Diego settled against his chest with the contentment of a child who felt completely secure. Several executive team members smiled at the scene, but Maya noticed that Victoria Chen was watching Michael's interaction with Diego with particularly keen attention. Maya's recommendations align perfectly with the strategic direction we've been discussing for next year, Michael said, his voice carrying subtle emotion as Diego dozed against his shoulder. The question is how quickly we can implement these changes without compromising the quality that our users have come to expect. David Martinez consulted his notes before responding. If we prioritize the adaptive scaling retrofits for our 3 most popular applications, we could have beta versions ready for testing within 4 months. New applications built with these principles could launch in the spring. That timeline assumes we have adequate staffing for both maintenance of existing products and development of new features, Victoria added. Maya, would you be interested in expanding your role to include oversight of these implementation projects? Maya felt her heart skip a beat at the suggestion. An expanded role would mean increased responsibility and greater impact, but it would also require more time commitment and potentially more complex scheduling around Diego's needs. I would need to understand the specific expectations and time requirements, Maya said carefully. My priority is maintaining the quality of my work while ensuring that Diego's needs are consistently met. Of course, Michael said immediately. Any role expansion would need to accommodate your scheduling requirements. Sterling Tech benefits enormously from your expertise, but not at the expense of your family responsibilities. The meeting concluded with agreements to develop detailed implementation plans for Maya's recommendations and to reconvene in 2 weeks to discuss the expanded consulting role. As the executive team members filed out of the conference room, Victoria Chen lingered behind, approaching Maya with a thoughtful expression. That was an exceptional presentation, Victoria said. Your combination of technical understanding and practical experience is exactly what this industry needs more of. Maya thanked her for the feedback, but she could see that Victoria had something else on her mind. The CTO glanced toward Michael, who was helping Diego gather his toys while talking quietly to the little boy about their afternoon plans. Maya, may I ask you a personal question? Victoria said, lowering her voice slightly. How long have you and Michael been involved? The question caught Maya completely off guard. Oh, we're not. I mean, he's my employer. This is a professional relationship. Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. I apologize if I misread the situation. It's just that I've worked with Michael for 5 years, and I've never seen him interact with anyone the way he interacts with you and Diego. There's an ease there that suggests a much deeper connection than a typical consulting arrangement. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks as she processed Victoria's observation. It's complicated, she said finally. Diego seems to have formed a strong attachment to Michael, and Michael has been incredibly patient and kind about it. But we haven't discussed anything beyond our professional relationship. Michael Sterling is one of the most private people I know, Victoria said gently. The fact that he's allowing personal connections to develop at all is significant. Just be careful. There are aspects of his history that might complicate things in ways you don't expect. Before Maya could ask what Victoria meant by that cryptic warning, Michael approached with Diego, who was clutching his stuffed monkey and looking ready for his afternoon nap. Excellent presentation, Michael said to Maya. I think you've given the team exactly the framework they need to move forward with meaningful improvements. Victoria excused herself, but not before giving Maya a meaningful look that suggested their conversation was far from over. Maya found herself wondering what aspects of Michael's history Victoria had been alluding to, and why someone who seemed so open and genuine would inspire such careful warnings from people who knew him well. The following weeks brought significant changes to Maya's routine and responsibilities at Sterling Tech. The executive team had approved an expanded consulting role that involved direct oversight of the adaptive scaling implementation projects, which meant more time at the office and deeper involvement in the technical aspects of software development. Diego continued to thrive in the Sterling Tech environment, but Maya noticed subtle changes in his behavior that both pleased and concerned her. He had become more verbal, often using new words and phrases he picked up from the various employees who interacted with him throughout the day. More significantly, he had begun referring to Sterling Tech as home, and would become distressed if their visits there were shorter than usual. Michael's involvement in Diego's daily routine had also intensified. He would often join them for lunch in the company cafeteria, help with Diego's afternoon snack, and even participate in the little boy's impromptu educational activities. What surprised Maya most was Michael's intuitive understanding of Diego's needs and moods, often anticipating when the toddler was becoming overstimulated or tired before Maya herself noticed the signs. The professional collaboration between Maya and Michael had evolved into something that felt increasingly personal, though neither had explicitly acknowledged the shift. They would often continue work discussions over dinner at restaurants near Diego's bedtime, with Michael naturally taking on supportive parenting tasks like helping Diego navigate restaurant high chairs or entertaining him when Maya needed to take important phone calls. It was during one of these dinner meetings that Maya finally gathered the courage to ask Michael about the personal history that Victoria Chen had hinted at. They were at a family-friendly restaurant in Capitol Hill, and Diego was happily occupied with coloring activities while they reviewed implementation timelines for the spring application launches. Michael, Maya said, setting down her pen and looking directly at him, can I ask you something personal? Michael's posture tensed slightly, but he nodded. Of course. Victoria mentioned that there are aspects of your history that might be relevant to whatever this is between us. I don't want to pry, but Diego and I are becoming very attached to you, and I need to understand if there's anything I should be prepared for. Michael was quiet for a long moment, his eyes focused on Diego's concentrated coloring efforts. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that Maya had sensed but never heard directly before. I was married, he said simply. My wife. Sarah and I had a son named Lucas. He would be 5 now. Maya felt her breath catch as the pieces of Michael's behavior suddenly began to make sense. What happened? Michael's hands clenched briefly on the table before he forced them to relax. Lucas was born with a rare genetic condition that affected his neurological development. He was incredibly bright and curious, but he struggled with traditional learning methods. That's actually what inspired me to start Sterling Tech. I wanted to create tools that would help children like Lucas access education in ways that worked for their unique needs. Maya could see the pain in Michael's expression as he continued. Lucas lived to be 3 years old. Sarah and I spent those years fighting for every moment, every milestone, every small victory. When he died, Sarah couldn't handle the grief. She blamed me for not being able to save him, for focusing too much on work and not enough on finding better treatments. Our marriage didn't survive. "I'm so sorry," Maya whispered, understanding now the depth of emotion she had sensed whenever Michael interacted with Diego. "Sarah moved back to her family in Portland 2 years ago," Michael continued. "We don't stay in touch. I threw myself into building Sterling Tech, convincing myself that creating better educational tools was a way to honor Lucas's memory. But really, I was just avoiding the pain of losing him." Diego looked up from his coloring at that moment, as if sensing the serious tone of their conversation. He slid down from his chair and walked over to Michael, climbing onto his lap with the casual confidence that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. "Papa sad?" Diego asked, his small hand reaching up to touch Michael's cheek. Michael's voice was rough with emotion when he answered, "A little bit, little man, but being with you and Mama makes Papa feel better." Maya watched this exchange with tears in her eyes, finally understanding the profound healing that Diego's presence had brought to Michael's life. But she also realized the complexity of the situation they had all walked into without fully understanding the implications. "Michael," she said softly, "Diego doesn't know that you're not actually his father. To him, you're just Papa, the person who shows up consistently and loves him unconditionally. What happens when he gets older and starts asking questions?" Michael looked down at Diego, who had settled contentedly against his chest and was showing him the picture he had colored. "I've been thinking about that too. Maya, I need you to know that my feelings for Diego are genuine. He's brought light back into my life in ways I didn't think were possible. And my feelings for you." He paused, seeming to struggle with how to articulate something that had been building between them for weeks. "I care about both of you more than I expected to when this all started," he said finally. "I don't want to complicate your life or Diego's, but I also can't pretend that what I feel is just professional courtesy or casual friendship." Maya felt her heart racing as Michael's words confirmed what she had been sensing but hadn't dared to hope for. "I care about you too," she admitted. "But this situation is complicated in ways that go beyond normal relationship concerns. Diego's attachment to you is so strong that losing you would devastate him. And if we pursue something romantic that doesn't work out, it would hurt all of us," Michael finished. "I understand that. Maya, I would never do anything to jeopardize Diego's emotional well-being. He's been through enough uncertainty in his young life with his father abandoning you both. The last thing he needs is another important person disappearing." They sat in silence for several minutes, both processing the weight of what had been acknowledged between them. Diego continued to color peacefully in Michael's lap, oblivious to the adult complexities swirling around his simple, trusting attachment to the man he called Papa. "So where does that leave us?" Maya asked finally. Michael shifted Diego carefully so he could look directly at Maya. "I think it leaves us taking things very slowly and very carefully. Being honest about our feelings while prioritizing Diego's stability above everything else. And maybe exploring what it might look like to build something together that honors both what we want and what Diego needs." Maya nodded, feeling both relief and apprehension at Michael's thoughtful approach. "I'd like that. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. If you ever decide that this is too much, or that the grief for Lucas makes it too difficult to be in Diego's life, you'll talk to me before you make any decisions. We'll figure out how to handle it in a way that protects him as much as possible." Michael's expression grew solemn. "I promise." But Maya, being with Diego doesn't diminish my love for Lucas or make me miss him less. If anything, it's helped me understand that the heart has infinite capacity for love. What I feel for Diego doesn't replace what I felt for my son. It exists alongside it. The conversation was interrupted by Diego's announcement that he was finished coloring and wanted to show them both his masterpiece. The picture was a typical toddler creation, with bold scribbles in various colors that Diego proudly identified as Mama, Papa, and Diego at work. Maya looked at the drawing and felt something shift in her understanding of their situation. Diego's world had room for all of them together, and maybe it was time for the adults to stop overthinking what felt natural and right to a child who loved without reservation or complication. The next few weeks brought a subtle but significant change in the dynamic between Maya, Michael, and Diego. They began spending more time together outside of work, with Michael joining them for weekend activities like visits to the Seattle Children's Museum or walks through Discovery Park. These outings felt increasingly like family activities, though none of them used that word explicitly. Diego's development during this period was remarkable. His vocabulary expanded rapidly, his problem-solving skills improved noticeably, and his social confidence grew in ways that Maya attributed to the security and stimulation of having two devoted adults consistently present in his life. He had begun to sleep through the night more reliably, showed less separation anxiety when Maya left him with Mrs. Chen, and demonstrated the kind of emotional regulation that suggested a child who felt genuinely secure in his relationships. Maya found herself falling into a routine that felt more sustainable and fulfilling than anything she had experienced since Diego's birth. Her work at Sterling Tech was intellectually challenging and professionally rewarding, while Michael's presence in their lives provided both practical support and emotional partnership that she hadn't realized she was missing. But it was Michael's transformation that amazed Maya most. The reserved, sometimes stern CEO she had first encountered had evolved into someone who laughed easily, engaged playfully with Diego's toddler adventures, and showed vulnerability in ways that suggested deep trust in their relationship. She could see him healing from his grief not by forgetting Lucas, but by allowing himself to love again in a way that honored both his past and his present. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon when Maya received an urgent call from Mrs. Chen. Diego had developed a high fever during his nap and was asking for both Mama and Papa with the kind of distress that indicated he needed the comfort of both his primary attachment figures. Maya called Michael immediately, explaining the situation and expecting him to express concern, but ultimately defer to her judgment about Diego's care. Instead, Michael's response was immediate and decisive. "I'll meet you at the pediatrician's office," he said. "Text me the address. Diego needs both of us right now." The hour they spent in the waiting room and examination room revealed the depth of Michael's commitment to Diego in a way that abstract discussions about feelings and intentions never could. He held the feverish little boy with gentle competence, sang softly to calm his distress, and asked informed questions about the pediatrician's recommendations with the engaged concern of a devoted parent. When Diego's fever broke later that evening and he fell asleep peacefully between Maya and Michael on the couch in Maya's apartment, she realized that they had crossed an invisible threshold. They were no longer three separate individuals navigating an unusual situation. They had become a family in every way that mattered, bound together by love, commitment, and shared responsibility for a little boy who had brought them all exactly what they needed. "Thank you," Maya whispered to Michael as they watched Diego sleep peacefully, "for being here, for caring about him the way you do." Michael's arm tightened around both of them. "Thank you for letting me be here, for trusting me with both of you." As Seattle city lights twinkled beyond Maya's apartment windows, she felt a sense of completion she had never expected to find. The unconventional beginning of their relationship had led to something profound and lasting, built on a foundation. of love for a little boy who had seen something in Michael Sterling that the rest of the world had missed. Diego stirred in his sleep, murmuring contentedly as he settled more deeply between his two favorite people. In his dreams, there was no confusion about family structure or adult complications. There was just Mama and Papa, and the secure knowledge that he was loved completely by both of them. Maya looked at Michael and saw her own sense of wonder and gratitude reflected in his expression. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and decisions about how to navigate their unique family structure in a world that might not understand their unconventional beginning. But tonight, they were simply three people who had found each other when they needed it most, creating something beautiful from the unexpected connection between a lonely CEO and a toddler who saw straight to his heart. The December snow that blanketed Seattle was unusual enough to close schools and transform the city into a winter wonderland that delighted children and frustrated commuters in equal measure. Maya stood at the window of her new apartment in Queen Anne, watching Diego press his nose against the glass while squealing with excitement at the white flakes dancing outside. The apartment was 3 times larger than her previous place, with 2 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and a view of the Space Needle that made every morning feel like a gift. Moving in together had been Michael's suggestion 2 months earlier, presented with the careful consideration he brought to all decisions that affected their unconventional family. Diego needs stability, he had said during one of their evening conversations. And practically speaking, we're already spending most of our time together anyway. This just makes it official. The transition had been surprisingly smooth. Diego had adapted to his new room with enthusiasm, especially when Michael had helped him arrange his toys and books in the custom-built shelving that somehow appeared overnight. Maya had been touched by the thoughtful details Michael had included in choosing the apartment, from the child-safe cabinet locks to the reading nook with perfect lighting for bedtime stories. This morning held special significance beyond the rare Seattle snowfall. It marked exactly 1 year since Diego had first called Michael Papa in that Sterling Tech conference room, setting in motion a series of events none of them could have predicted. To celebrate, Michael had arranged for them to spend the day at home together, building snowmen and enjoying the kind of quiet family time that had become precious to all of them. "Papa, snow," Diego announced, turning from the window to search for Michael with the expectation that his excitement would be immediately shared and understood. Michael emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of hot chocolate topped with marshmallows. His hair still damp from his morning shower, and his expression soft with the contentment that had gradually replaced the careful reserve Maya had first encountered. "I see it, buddy. Want to go play in it after breakfast?" Diego's enthusiastic response was interrupted by the doorbell, an unexpected sound that made all 3 of them pause. They weren't expecting visitors, and Michael rarely had unannounced guests. When he opened the door, Maya was surprised to see Victoria Chen standing in the hallway, holding a wrapped gift and wearing an expression that suggested this visit carried particular importance. "I hope I'm not intruding," Victoria said, her eyes moving between Michael and Maya before settling on Diego, who was peering around Michael's legs with curious interest. "I brought Diego's Christmas present a little early, and I wanted to talk to both of you about something." Maya invited Victoria inside, noting the careful way the CTO observed their living space and the obvious signs of their blended family life. Diego's toys were scattered throughout the room. Michael's work laptop shared space with Maya's educational materials on the dining table, and family photos from recent outings decorated the mantel above the fireplace. Victoria's gift for Diego was a custom-built tablet loaded with educational games specifically designed for his age group, including several applications that incorporated his own voice recordings and photos. Diego was immediately enchanted, though he politely showed more interest in sharing his discovery with Papa and Mama than in exploring the device independently. "Victoria, this is incredibly thoughtful," Maya said, genuinely touched by the personalized nature of the gift. You didn't need to go to such trouble. Actually, that brings me to why I'm really here, Victoria said, settling into the armchair that Diego had designated as the guest spot during his tours of their new home. Maya, Sterling Tech's board of directors has been discussing your impact on our educational programs over the past year. Your work has exceeded every expectation. Maya felt Michael's attention sharpen beside her, though his expression remained carefully neutral. In the months since her role had expanded, they had been scrupulous about maintaining professional boundaries during work hours, despite their personal relationship being an open secret among Sterling Tech employees. The board has authorized me to offer you a permanent position as Director of Educational Innovation, Victoria continued. It would involve overseeing all curriculum development, managing relationships with school districts, and leading a team of specialized consultants. The salary and benefits package would reflect the seniority of the role. Maya felt her breath catch at the magnitude of the opportunity. A director-level position would represent the kind of career advancement she had only dreamed about when she was struggling to find temporary work a year ago. But more than the professional recognition, it would mean permanent stability for her small family and the chance to impact educational technology on a national scale. There's one more thing, Victoria said, her tone becoming more personal. The board is also aware of your relationship with Michael, and there are no concerns about conflicts of interest. If anything, they view your partnership as additional evidence of your commitment to Sterling Tech's mission. Diego chose that moment to abandon his new tablet and climb onto Michael's lap, settling against his chest with the casual ownership that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. Victoria watched the interaction with a smile. That suggested both approval and understanding. I don't know what to say, Maya admitted. This is far beyond anything I imagined when I first walked into Sterling Tech for that tour. Say yes, Michael said quietly, his arms tightening around. Diego, you've earned this opportunity, and Sterling Tech needs your vision to guide our future development. Maya looked around their living room, taking in the evidence of the life they had built together over the past year. Diego's artwork covered the refrigerator. Michael's business book shared shelf space with her education journals, and the calendar on the wall showed a mixture of work meetings, pediatrician appointments, and family activities that reflected their integrated priorities. Yes, she said, feeling a surge of excitement at the possibilities ahead. Absolutely yes. Victoria's smile was radiant as she stood to leave. Excellent. We'll work out the details after the holidays, but I wanted you to know before the new year that Sterling Tech's future includes you in a leadership role. After Victoria left, Maya found herself standing in the middle of their living room, processing the magnitude of how much her life had changed. 1 year ago, she had been a struggling single mother with limited prospects and no clear path forward. Now she was about to become a director at one of Seattle's most innovative companies, living with a man who loved her son as his own, and building a family that felt more stable and secure than anything she had previously experienced. Mama happy? Diego asked, having picked up on the emotional energy in the room, even if he couldn't fully understand its source. Yes, sweetheart, Maya said, sitting on the couch so Diego could climb into her lap. Mama is very happy. Michael joined them on the couch, creating their familiar family huddle that had become Diego's favorite way to process important moments. We should celebrate, he said. Maybe dinner at that place Diego likes with the crayons and the dinosaur decorations. Actually, Maya said, feeling bold with happiness and security, I have a different kind of celebration in mind. She disappeared into the bedroom and returned carrying a small wrapped box that she had been hiding for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Michael's eyes widened as she handed it to him, and Diego clapped his hands with excitement at the prospect of another present. Maya, Michael said softly, you didn't need to get me anything. Just open it, Maya said, her heart racing with anticipation and nervousness. Michael carefully unwrapped the box to reveal a simple silver key ring holding a single key. Attached to the ring was a small card with Diego's handwriting, carefully guided by Maya's hand, that read, "Papa's house key." "I know we're already living together," Maya said as Michael stared at the key with an expression she couldn't quite read. "But I wanted to make it official. This is your home too, Michael. Our home." Michael's response was to pull both Maya and Diego into his arms, holding them tightly while his voice caught with emotion. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me with this. With both of you." Diego, delighted to be the center of a group hug, began giggling and demanding squeeze hugs with the enthusiasm that made even serious moments joyful. When they finally separated, Maya saw tears in Michael's eyes and realized that her simple gesture had carried deeper significance than she had fully understood. "Maya," Michael said, his voice serious despite the happiness in his expression, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've been waiting for the right moment to share." Maya felt a flicker of concern, but Michael's tone suggested good news rather than worry. Diego had returned to exploring his new tablet, giving them a moment of relative privacy for adult conversation. "I've been in contact with a family lawyer," Michael said, "about adoption procedures. I want to legally adopt Diego, if you're willing. I want him to be my son in every way that matters." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes as the full meaning of Michael's words sank in. "You want to adopt him?" "I want him to have the security of knowing that I'm committed to being his father permanently," Michael said. "Not just while we're together, but always. No matter what happens between us, Diego will always be my son." Maya thought about the fear she had carried for months about what would happen to Diego if her relationship with Michael ended. The idea that Michael wanted to make a legal commitment that would protect Diego regardless of their romantic future felt like the ultimate expression of love for her son. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, I want that too." Diego looked up from his tablet at the sound of their emotional voices, his expression shifting to concern at seeing both adults crying. "Mama sad? Papa sad?" "Nobody," Michael said, wiping his eyes while smiling. "Mama and Papa are happy. Very, very happy." "Happy tears," Diego said sagely, a concept he had learned during previous emotional family moments. That afternoon, they built a snowman in their building's courtyard while neighbors watched from their windows with amusement and obvious affection for the young family. Diego insisted that the snowman needed a papa nose and a mama hat, creating a frozen family portrait that made all three of them laugh with delight. As evening approached, and they settled in for their traditional Friday family movie night, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The scared young mother who had walked into Sterling Tech a year ago could never have imagined the life she was now living. But more than the professional success or financial security, it was the love she saw in Michael's eyes when he looked at Diego, and the absolute trust in her son's face when he climbed into Michael's arms. That filled her with gratitude. "Mama," Diego said as Michael carried him to bed, "tomorrow is Saturday family day?" "Yes, sweetheart," Maya said, following them down the hallway. "Tomorrow we're going to see the Christmas lights downtown, remember? With Papa?" "Always." "With Papa," Michael said firmly, meeting Maya's eyes over Diego's head with a look that confirmed everything she needed to know about their future. Later that night, after Diego was safely asleep and they were cleaning up the remnants of their celebration dinner, Maya found Michael standing in the kitchen, holding the key she had given him, turning it over in his fingers with a thoughtful expression. "Second thoughts?" she asked, feeling a moment of uncertainty. "The opposite," Michael said, pulling her close. "I keep thinking about that first day when Diego called me Papa in front of everyone. I thought it was embarrassing, maybe even problematic. I had no idea he was actually telling the truth." Maya smiled, remembering her own mortification in that conference room that now seemed like a lifetime ago. "He saw something in you that the rest of us took months to understand." "Children see what matters," Michael said, echoing something he had said during their very first meeting. Diego knew we belonged together before we did. As they turned off the lights and headed toward their bedroom, Maya paused to look in on Diego one more time. He was sleeping peacefully, surrounded by the stuffed animals and books that made up his secure world, one small hand still clutching the tablet Victoria had brought him. This little boy, who had once accidentally called a stranger Papa, was now the center of a family that none of them had expected, but all of them needed. His innocent trust had transformed a struggling single mother into a successful professional, a grieving widower into a devoted father, and 3 separate individuals into something beautiful and lasting. Maya pulled Diego's blanket up around his shoulders and whispered the words she said every night. "Sweet dreams, sweetheart. Mama and Papa love you so much." In the hallway, Michael waited for her with an expression of contentment that she still sometimes couldn't believe was real. Together, they had built something extraordinary from the simplest beginning, proving that love doesn't always follow the paths we expect, but it always finds a way to bring the right people together when they need each other most. A year ago, Diego's innocent mistake had shocked everyone in that conference room. Tonight, it was simply the truth that defined their family. Mama, Papa, and the little boy whose heart had been big enough to see the love they all needed before they even knew they were looking for it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.